here and can vote and considered part of the quorum. So that's great. May we have an approval of today's agenda?
Move to approve.
Approve.
Thank you, thank you. How about the minutes? Any corrections or additions?
Andrew, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Okay, any contrary minded? All
No,
right.
thanks.
Hearing none, I'll start with my board report and chair report. There was an awful lot to report this week, needless to say. Not all of it good, but a lot of it good. Ridership continues to climb. There have been some record days. Actually, President Davey, who will be our speaker later, announced that ridership during the recent Pride weekend was the highest that it's been since way before the pandemic. I mean, it was really high, and many days have seen not 4 million, but we're up to like the 4.7 million range now, which is just great news. Every time I ride, it really feels like as busy as pre-pandemic. I'm really happy to see that. That is wonderful news. Also wonderful news is the final finding of the FONSI and the approval of congestion pricing. Now the lawsuits begin, but actually now is when the Traffic Mobility Review Board will do their very contentious, I'm sure, deliberations to see what the rates will be, what time of day they will be in effect, what days of week they will be in effect, and who will get exemptions. We are part of a group that is asking for certain things from the Traffic Mobility Review Board. Do you have a copy of anything that we can share, or?
I don't believe anything has been finalized
Nothing's
yet.
finalized yet. Okay. We're asking for, yes, Stuart.
Sorry.
No problem.
If we discuss this at a future meeting, one thing I want to just point out is that prior to the meeting, our government workers are authorized to use their personal vehicles in connection with work, as well as government vehicles that travel throughout the area. And, when we consider making any recommendations, if we do at all, I think we can't forget about that group as well. Oh, okay.
All right. Do you have any thoughts on how they should be treated?
I think they should be exempted.
Exempted.
Right, because it would be a very challenging and crippling thing if they had to stay.
Okay.
And, and there would have to be safeguards, that they actually were using their vehicles in the performance of their duties, where they actually were authorized to be commuting in that zone. But, with the proper safeguards, I don't think it's showing effect.
Okay.
Do you mean like NYPD vehicles?
No, not
Or like
in this case, social workers who have responsibility of investigating reports of abuse and neglect. They go to people's homes. They're authorized to use their personal vehicles. There's no residency requirement for them, so many come from New Jersey.
I wonder how many actually use personal vehicles if they're heading to Manhattan below 60th Street, though.
No, and that's where government offices are located, so they may be checking in, doing paperwork.
Not all, but some,
no,
yes.
This is just one case.
Yep.
That would be
Well, the TMRB is going to submit their findings to the MTA board, and we will have a look at them, and we'll be able to provide feedback, and then they'll take back the feedback, and I'm sure there's also going to be public hearings on their recommendations.
If we're going to become a thing, we should,
That's a good
one
idea.
category that needs to be not overlooked.
Absolutely.
And official vehicles themselves, not just NYC.
Absolutely right, Stuart. All right, so as you're all aware, the board at their July meeting will vote on the fare increase. We went over what the proposed fares were last month, so we don't have to go through them one by one unless anyone has a question.
I have a question.
Yes.
Our concerns about how the Atlantic ticket would be
Folded into city
operationalized,
ticket, yeah.
Was there any, after the testimony, was there any discussion about modifying their position or clarifying what they want to do?
Haven't heard any, Stuart.
Okay.
I've heard lots of elected and other rider advocacy groups echo what we're saying about keeping the weekly option, and I'm even saying, since the city ticket will be available in peak hours now, make a peak weekly fare, if, you know, or a special fare for weekly or whatever. But don't do away with it. I think it gets people on the vehicles.
But they haven't said anything.
They have not.
Okay.
They have not.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes.
Just for the record, I did speak about the weekly at the public hearing. You saw me there, as well as at the subcommittee.
Since I saw you there, why are you telling me?
Well, you didn't mention me, I was there, but I just wanted to say.
I didn't mention the other 25 people that were there either.
No, I'm talking about, TRC, because, it is important that the weekly ticket must be in there at all costs, because a lot of people use it.
Yeah, and now that we have that one terminal connection at Grand Central, I think they probably should rethink the joint ticket, because the $8 addition doesn't necessarily make sense. You can do better with two city tickets, so hopefully the best value shows up on e-ticket and train time first. That's what we all want to see. Yeah, otherwise it doesn't make any sense. All right.
I had a question. Have we heard anything back from the Long Island Railroad about them still advertising for off-peak when their city ticket?
I have not, but it's possible that Jerry has. Jerry's in touch with the LIRR pretty frequently. We can ask him and get back to you later.
Okay, thanks.
I have not heard anything at the board meetings, so that's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll ask Jerry.
We have asked them to, show city ticket and Atlantic ticket higher up in the app and on ticket machines, but we haven't had any luck, getting the off-peak option removed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, kind of odd.
No.
Very odd.
We have a quorum.
Yes.
We do. One of the more controversial items at the board meeting was the change to e-hail. That was the majority of the speakers, which, if anybody who watched that meeting, you couldn't miss that. They are, and it was voted on, making changes to triple the eligible users to e-hail from 1,200 to 3,600, but in order to do that, the unlimited aspect is gone. There is a cap on the number of rides on e-hail now. It allows more people to take advantage of that great program, but it does put a cap on the number of rides. And you'll be able to choose how you want to join, either by distance or fare. I mean, there's going to be some options, but a lot of folks were not happy with that decision, needless to say.
So complicated.
It's complicated, but once you're enrolled in it, you'll get it, obviously. If it does add, if it does triple the number of people that can take advantage of e-hail, which is great because, you decide you want to go somewhere on the spur of the moment, you can do that. That would be wonderful. But that is a big change. And let me also say, we have a new Inspector General. Daniel Court has been named Inspector General to succeed the acting Inspector General, Elizabeth Keating, who did a pretty active job and came out with many reports, needless to say. Daniel Court, Elizabeth will return to her duties as Executive Deputy Inspector General, so she's not leaving. Court has more than 3 decades of law enforcement and criminal justice experience. Most recently, he served as First Deputy Commissioner of the New York City Department of Investigation, and he also served as Acting Commissioner from November of 21 to 22. He is now officially the Inspector General. He has begun his role, and we look forward to some investigations from him and getting together with him, and we hope after he's there a while that we can get Inspector Court as our speaker. So that would be good. CBTC installation is going ahead, and I mean furiously. There are so many geos now concerning CBTC. They are now finally starting to make announcements and letting you know that if you're going through a zone where there are workers, you are likely to have slow speeds. 8th Avenue between 34th and 14th, you will definitely notice on the A, C, or E, slow speeds. But they are putting it in, Queens Boulevard East, Queens Boulevard West, 8th Avenue, 6th Avenue, Culver, the Crosstown G line, which was announced, and you'll hear from our speaker today. The G, J, and M will be getting extra weekend service starting this weekend. Yes, indeed, and that's the first of many lines getting extra service. August, we'll see more, and I read them out. I can read them again if you, but I don't have to. So that continues.
Andrew?
Yes.
Are those, because I just experienced it, are those the only lines going to both?
No.
For some reason, between 14th Street and here, or maybe it's just me, because they want to screw me over, besides everything else, it goes, I don't know, Bert, you experienced it, but...
I experienced the best route I've ever felt coming down from 42nd Street.
Well, that's why maybe the next one was so slow.
Well, I was
but-
here half
Were you on a 4 or 5?
Jesus, I don't know, it definitely wasn't a 6, you know the problem I have getting from
Yeah.
the 6.
I do.
And that happened, it happened again today, but I don't even bother with that anymore. But but between 14th and here, it just creeped along, and it was supposed to, that's supposed to be the express. I could have made it faster if I had just stayed on the 6th that I finally got on to. So is there any...
Do you remember where you started going slow?
South
Yeah, of
14th.
14th Street.
Between 14th and Astor Place, or?
No, between 14th and here.
Oh, so you don't
It
know
was
if it
an
was in the
express.
northern end or the southern end of the stretch between 14th Street and Brooklyn Bridge?
No, between 14th Street and we are at Bowling Green.
Right, but where did it start going slow?
14th. I got the train at 42nd.
Okay, so there was obviously
It went fine
trouble on the
between
express track.
42nd
Okay. Okay,
And then
Thank you.
the other.
I gotta move on.
Yeah, no, since you brought it up, I was going to bring it up later.
Yeah, so all of those lines are going to be experiencing CBTC installation. There is pain now, but once you have more frequent service, I guess everybody will be thankful. But it's a ways away, and I keep saying, and you know, they keep touting how much work has been done on the Culver line and on the Queens Boulevard, east and west. But if you don't have CBTC from one end of the train to the other, I don't see the benefit, because you'll catch up to another one and have to slow down. So you need the whole line CBTC equipped, and that they're really moving forward a
Maybe
lot.
that's what happened. First City was on a very fast train, so maybe that's what happened on Florida 5.
So, some Penn Station news. I'm sure everyone has seen it, but there is a major change in the ongoing battle about whether we will get office towers and whether that will slow down or alter the reconstruction of the station and make the station more efficient and usable and expandable. The towers are now out of the picture. There's no market for all of those thousands of office spaces, and the station needs a renovation, because not only are we getting more frequent Amtrak service, they keep telling us, but we're certainly going to get Penn access from the New Haven line. Hopefully we'll get more frequent New Jersey Transit service and Long Island service at some point. But the station must be renovated and made more efficient. The public areas are much improved. Anyone that's been there can see that. You wouldn't even recognize it today. It's magnificent. And the fact that you have departure information on every column means everyone doesn't have to gather in a huge horde and watch a screen. This is so great. So it's getting there.
It's 20th century.
Yeah, it is.
At least in the 20th century, not
Yeah.
21st.
Yeah, it's 20, yeah, you would have, but the public spaces are great. You know, the beams are gone so you don't hit your head, the head knockers as they were called. But the platform areas and the tracks need major work. And if we're going to get through running at some point, which we all hope we will, which is an efficient way and would get Long Islanders to Newark Airport on a single vehicle, for instance, well, changing to the air train at Newark Airport, but, you know, to other destinations, to work destinations, to leisure, we have to expand the size of the platforms and all of that, and that work is going to commence without the office tower. So I think that's good news. Also, Chair Lieber has mentioned that they are also going to make major improvements to the outside of the station. greenery, sitting areas, easier access from various, 8th Avenue, 31st, 32nd, I mean, they're gonna make major improvements, so that is a great thing and a long, long overdue thing, as it is the busiest passenger terminal in the nation.
Question,
Yes,
is there any plans at Madison Square Garden?
we haven't heard any.
It's been so quiet.
It's been quiet.
Madison Square Garden
Quiet
is
on.
staying. I was at that press conference. I'll report on it in about 2 minutes.
All right, well, that answers that. They're staying. We had, a wonderful event last evening. It's the 40th anniversary, and Stuart was in attendance, as was Kara and Lisa and myself and Randy, of the 40th anniversary of Metro North. They had an amazing display. The Transit Museum put on, they had such amazing, and it's still there in the Transit Museum shop, in the shuttle passageway. They have detail, they have historic things, and two people who attended were former presidents, Peter Stengel, and, which was great to see, Peter Stengel, and, why do I just blank on him? Who was, all of a sudden I just blanked on his name for some reason.
I know the feeling.
After Peter Stumble, Conrail or?
Oh, my goodness, no, it was a Metro North president. Who was the other president? Why am I blanking on his name? He gave me such a big greeting. Joe Giletti. Joe Giletti was there, and he was great. He is now a consultant in Florida, but he wouldn't miss this, he said. Peter Stengel still lives in Upper Westchester, so a user of the system. Both men looked great, sharp as a tack, and if you have a chance to go there and see the exhibit, it's wonderful. Now, some really, really sad news. We lost 3 wonderful giants in the transportation industry in the past 2 weeks. And I mean giants. Trudy will, of course, tell us more about the passing of Dick Ravitch, who laid the groundwork for everything we're experiencing today. I mean, you just can't say enough about Dick Ravitch.
But I will.
I know you, within the time constraint, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing what he put in place and set the stage for us to have the system that we have. Obviously, we also lost Dr. Michael Horodniceno, who was the head of MTA Capital Construction and whom many of us worked with on various projects. He was a riot, he was sharp, and he was efficient, and he was just a great guy.
Andrew, you should also add that he was literally the father of the Second Avenue subway.
Yeah, Dr. H.
He is the one that really made it happen when everybody said that it couldn't happen.
Absolutely. He had a lot under his belt, and I don't know how many of you knew Don Harold from the Transit Museum, and he was like in the beginning at New York City Transit when I got interested in all this, and he showed me things and took me on tours that nobody else saw. I mean, he was just amazing. I heard he was not in great health, and I'm really sorry to hear of his passing. But this was not a good 2 weeks for the transportation industry in the respect of losing 3 magnificent people. And Trudy, because you were so close to Dick, you want to say some words?
Well, yeah, I was at Dick's funeral yesterday at Central Synagogue. It was quite amazing. Kathy spoke, and then Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey, who was a very close friend of his. As a matter of fact, one of my last conversations with Dick was, hey, can you get your pal Phil to cut the crap with it? No, because Dick was very much in favor of congestion pricing.
Just now? She just emailed me.
Did I do something wrong?
Yeah, somebody's looking.
Somebody's trying to log in and doesn't have the link. Please go on.
Oh, okay. So I didn't do anything. No, because I told Lisa that I was going to give a brief about Dick, but when I saw Lisa on Tuesday, where we were both at the governor's announcement, and you guys were there also, it was really, that was something very, very special. And then my friend, which I didn't even know until she called me up. Lisa was, Kathy called me up. Tuesday was also my birthday. It was the day after Dick Ravitch died, and it was my birthday, so you can imagine mixed emotions that are still going through me. So if I sound a little more discombobulated than I usually am, and I had, the week before, lost my very good friend, who some of you knew, Al Handel, who was the political printer, and he did a lot of work pro bono for PCAC and for various things that an amazing, wonderful guy. Some of you might have heard, because I was trying to get him a kidney. He didn't die from kidney failure. He died from cancer, which came on within 3 weeks period of time. That was it, all over. It's been a horrible couple of weeks. But there were good things happening, and as I said, and in the words of Stephen Sondheim, who I got to know in his later years, and he lived to be 93, I think it was from Follies, that wonderful song that Elaine Stritch sang, I'm Still Here. So a lot of you are going to have to put up with me for at least a while longer. But anyway, Phil Murphy gave one of the greatest tributes. I actually took some notes. So I'm just going to tell you what some people said about him rather than me going through everything. But as Andrew said, we would not have this, and Kathy said that, Governor Hochul, in her, when she spoke both on, and Richie Torres also, and Dan Goldman, who spoke on Tuesday, which was right after the announcement of Dick's departure. And it was very sudden. I only found out yesterday, Andrew, but just in case you didn't know, it seems that a month ago he had a bad fall, and they decided to operate
That I did not know.
No, I didn't know it either until the funeral, and people were talking about it, and had to shiver. So, Dick survived a lot of other things also. Anyway, Phil Murphy, I think, gave the greatest summing up by quoting Robert Frost, who wrote, Dick was not a teacher, but an awakener. And I think if there's anything that sums up, it's those few words. But his favorite saying was, which we should all know, this was Dick's favorite saying, which is sunset. Plant your feet in the ground before you try to grow wings.
Beautiful.
A great line. And then I have two more things. Mike Oreskes, who some of you might know, was a great reporter for the Times and very close friend of Dick's. He had more friends in the media, which at times made my life very difficult because I'd get calls from reporters when I was in communication, and they'd say, well, Dick Ravitch just said that blah, 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 do you have any comment on it? And I'd say, he said what? And then I'd say, I'll have to get back to you. And then I'd call him up and I'd say, Dick, did you really say to Oreskes or Sam Roberts or somebody? And he'd say, yeah, I thought they should know. But that was one of the joys of working for Dick Ravitch. And Mike Oreskes quoted Sam Roberts, who said, and I love this line, that Dick had a healthy respect, a healthy disrespect for everyone. And I think that's, you're jumping up in that. No, really. And then there are, and the amazing thing is that the funeral service ended, it was at Central Synagogue. I don't know if any of you know it, but it's one of the great, magnificent, it's not like Temple Emmanuel, it's not Reform. Well, it's conservative, leaning towards Reform, so it's whatever. But the cantor there, not Angela Buchwald, who everybody knows, but Daniel Mutlu, who turns out was a very close friend of Dick's also. He had more friends, more people. And it ended with his favorite song, which, believe it or not, was Oh, What a Beautiful Morning from Oklahoma.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Okay, and I could go on, and I'd be happy to share more with you, but
Thank you for all of that, Trudy.
I have said it before, and one of my last conversations with Dick, because this happened ever since he spoke to the PCAC, and I will bring this up to the whole PCAC, he said he was so honored that we brought him back. And in the way he put it, which maybe he had some insight, that we brought him back to the MTA for one last time, and he was so pleased with what we were doing and everything else. So to all of you.
We were honored he
And if you will
came.
pass this on to all of our friends, I don't know when we have our next PCAC meeting.
September.
Not till September. Yeah, well, I know, but Dick was still alive when we had it. Yeah, so anyway.
Can we have a moment of silence for these three amazing people that we just lost?
And Marisol express your condolences on that.
I saw that. Thank you
Yeah.
all.
Well, I will, if any of you want to contact Kathy, his wife, or anybody else, I'll be happy to give you, the emails or whatever, or you can send, people have been sending me condolences, like,
I think
We're doing our moment of silence.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for letting me say my piece.
Absolutely.
It's really been it's been a hell of 2 weeks.
Yeah. And happy birthday, belatedly.
Yeah.
Well, that was the irony.
You look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I had some good news this week.
Wonderful, share.
My grandson got engaged, and my son got a job.
Wow.
So,
Great.
all same
So he
day.
can pay for the
Doing
wedding.
what?
My son is a computer major.
Great. We do have, like I said, a pretty large agenda, so Lisa, would you like to,
Yes, I'm sorry I was late. I was, delayed. I don't know if you went into a little bit about.
I explained that there was, the press conference at Hoyt Schermerhorn,
Yes.
which Kate and I debated the pronunciation of.
Oh, no, she got corrected.
I always say it wrong.
But it was great to
Yeah.
see, Senator, Gennardis, Assembly Member Simon, and Council Member Ressler there, with a lot of the press, to hear about the G, J, and M service increases that begin this weekend. Many people lamented how infrequent the G has been, how you have to run for it because it's shorter. Somebody referred to the stub-end cars. The cars are the same length, there's just not as many of them.
Right, right.
But,
We're still doing the sprint.
if you're not near the middle of the platform,
I had to wait for the G this morning.
and now you'll have to sprint more frequently because they're gonna come more frequently.
Are they gonna be any longer?
No, they didn't do that.
And-
Neither is the,
There's still gonna be
neither-
mini
And the M will, of course, on weekends, still operate only between Metropolitan Avenue and Delancey Essex. So I asked that question. I also asked, since they were highlighting new arrivals of the R211s, Kawasaki was represented there. It's a really nice man who comes to these things. I told them I can always tell a Kawasaki built car on site because they have certain touches that some of the other builders do not have. You can easily tell a 62 from a 62A or a 68 from a 68A because the Kawasaki ones have a little extra. But anyway, they are going to be putting additional, every other month or so, additional trains of R211s. They think that they've solved the problem. There is new software installed on them as well. So they will be coming on the A line only for the time being. But you'll see more of them every month because even Demetrius said, people, or Rich Davies said, one of them said, people always ask me, what's the schedule of that R211 that's on the A line? I want to ride it. He says you'll have 2 or 3 or 4 more to choose from in the very near future. So that's great that they've worked out the kinks and that they're coming.
So,
And Lisa went for a little ride after the event.
That I should stay and take the ride because it was only going one stop backwards and then coming right to Fulton Street. Didn't say that was not exactly happening on my schedule, it was happening on their schedule. What was funny though was one of the reporters who was there tweeted that he had never been on R211 yet, so I took his picture and didn't have it. So, but the other, it was good timing for us, bad timing for him perhaps, that Lincoln Ressler was there. because the city budget deal is being announced today. And,
Indeed.
you know, as you know, we have been, vociferous supporters of 200%, of federal raising the federal poverty level to 200% for fair fares. And,
Which would get a lot more people using it.
yeah, doubling it.
Don't
which-
use the word raise, use the word lower, and it's.
No, it's, you increase the federal, you increase you double,
The
right,
eligibility.
you double the eligibility to 200% from 100% of the federal poverty level for, applicants for fair fares, to increase the number of people who would be eligible. Well, in their wisdom, apparently, according to Lincoln Ressler, they're not my words, these are the council members' words. The mayor made a handful of terrible budget deals, and this was
Yeah,
one of
he
them.
said that.
We did say that the agreement is
Even mince words.
120% of the federal poverty level, with $20 million additional in the budget, baseline. So.
Lincoln Wrestler is
So,
going to point out.
I'm sorry, let me just
Oh,
finish,
okay,
please.
and then I'll.
So, last year, the city council and mayor fought to base money, fair funding, which was good news. It was less money than we had all hoped for. But it was still at 100% of the federal poverty level, which is like $28,000, $27,000 for a family of four, which is really, in New York City, which is really extremely challenging. So, to put it mildly. So the
Very
big
mildly.
push, the Fair Evasion Task Force report, Community Services Society, CCAC, all of the council, all of the transit advocates, the poverty advocates, the good government advocates, everybody has been advocating for 200% eligibility to bring in more, to raising the federal poverty level to 200% to increase eligibility.
I don't know if I like the term poverty advocates. It sounds like you're advocating for poverty.
The anti-poverty.
There we go.
There we go.
Now
So what, in a quick sidebar with the council member after the press conference, it was, the conversation came to, is it possible to reopen the conversation? And the door's closed, but it's not locked. So this is a deal, but it's not, as I said when I was asked about it, look, it's a drop in the bucket, but every drop helps to fill the bucket. So this is not the deal that any of us hoped for. It's certainly not what,
The raise from 100 to 120 almost looks like, well, we wanted to give you something, so we'll give you the tiniest little bit.
Baselining the extra 20 million is they're not using all the money that's currently in the budget. So more people need to be brought in who are already eligible, and there are a variety of reasons that that's not currently happening, including that a lot of the people who are eligible don't take transit to their jobs. One of the other reasons that we found out on the Fair Evasion Task Force was because when you get a Metro card on fair fares, it comes with $0. So we recommended that there be at least 2 trips on it so you can get to a place where you can fill that Metro card. Because otherwise you're so far away from any possible place that it's prohibitive and then you just sit there. So this will raise it to, I think Kara's at about 30,000 about. But this may perhaps take, this will address the fare increase.
And if we can demonstrate that more people are actually signing up and using it, that would be some impetus to raise it further.
Andrew, since you're interrupted, and this is in this room, so if this is being recorded, well, if
It is being recorded.
Okay, then I will give some, basically, well, it actually has been on the news, or at least it's been on New York One, with our good friend, which, talk about name drops, I was sitting next to him at the end,
At the what?
at the thing that Lisa and I were both at. What's his name? Who's from New York One, who always interviews?
Dan Rivoli.
Dan
Rivoli.
Rivoli.
Yeah.
I said Dan, I couldn't remember his last name. And he's
I
reported
wasn't
on
there,
this.
but I know
But
it.
basically, this is not as many things that go on in this town, to quote Dick Ravitch again, who always says, it's all politics. And there is a, I'm trying to think of a good word, a dispute between the city council and the mayor, which I, in all my years in city government, maybe going back to early Mike Bloomberg, is going on between basically Adrian Adams. But Lincoln Ressler, who you just spoke about, is one of the leaders of the thing.
We got that
So
impression.
it's not about,
Oh, yeah.
it would be wonderful if we could get all of the anti-poverty groups and the transportation groups and everybody else and everybody writing letters and having demonstrations. But it's going to come down to, can the council get enough votes to literally
Override a
the
veto,
mayor?
yeah.
To override, not just on this issue, but the whole mayoral budget. And that's what it really comes down to. I mean, everybody, we want to write letters and we want to.
There have literally been rallies almost every week, sometimes
Budget
twice a week.
Now, let me just finish, because there's something else going on. Lincoln Ressler has something that's good for us and for congestion pricing, but also for the new, what is it called, the new bus lane?
Able.
Able, yeah. And that is that he has legislation in for parking tickets, but for the first time, any legislation like this includes people parking and not just double parking or anything else,
But in bus lanes.
but being in the bus lanes, which is really important as far as we're concerned. So he has put in legislation on that too, which has a really good chance of passing. For those of you who don't know Lincoln Ressler, you must know him because, and you also, he is from Brooklyn, as it seems everybody else. But now I'm very proud that I was born in Brooklyn. No, I've always been very proud
1 in
of
12
that.
Americans can trace their roots to Brooklyn.
Yes. No, I think it's 1 in 12 people.
He was there today because it's his district.
Yeah.
So that's why he was there,
Okay.
and because the council was voting on it.
And Assemblymember
Because
signed it,
I-
or District
I-
2.
I-
Yeah.
Lisa, with all due respect, I know him pretty well since he was a kid, and I will tell you that he would have been there today anyway.
It wouldn't have made sense if it was in the Bronx.
Sometimes, and I'm just.
Can we
there's a
move
word
on now,
called-
or?
There's a word called politics, and unfortunately, all of this is
But
happening.
in terms of the fair fare, getting back to that, because that's what this conversation is about, you know, we are continuing, the dialogue with, our colleagues in advocacy to discuss next steps.
And I'm continuing to discuss with David Jones, who has been probably the foremost proponent of
Yeah.
fair fares,
Yeah.
being from the
Well,
Community Service
David
Society.
is really,
So,
it's
right, so we're,
really,
so there, it's,
He's resigned to the 120, and right now it sounds like, but,
well, doors closed, but it's not locked.
right.
So,
look,
we'll see.
by the way, Lisa, I did not want to give the impression that writing letters, having demonstrations, having rallies isn't a good idea. But I'm just, and this is basically in this room, but since it's being recorded, other people will hear it also, and they know it, anybody who's been involved in this world, which unfortunately I'm a part of, that it really comes down. But it couldn't hurt, you know, it might not help, but it certainly couldn't hurt
Right.
to do everything else.
We have lots more to discuss, so please continue. Office info.
Office info.
Well, wait a minute, Lisa, do you want to talk about what went on because it was
The
really.
pricing, announcement, so that's the big day on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Big day.
We were, the final fund, the FHWA, said that the partners, city, MTA, state DOT, and city DOT could move ahead with the pilot tolling program, which is, the technical term for the, congestion pricing program. It's actually a longer name.
Yeah.
And, that they could move ahead with it. So basically, the, federal process has given them the green light to, signing the contract for the installation of, or signing these contracts to begin implementation for the gantry installation. So that's, you know, they're not gonna be the tolling infrastructure that you see when you go through the Ten Tunnel or one of those, or, you know, something that's a big overhang thing, because it's gonna be across 60th Street, which is a historic district, so they have to be, more secure, as it were. So, but there will be easy, it will be easy pass reader, it's the technology that's gonna be used And legislation was also passed on Monday, or introduced by the council Monday, I think it was passed as well, to, bring home further the anti-state license plate, rule laws, so that there's better opportunity for enforcement of those. And that coincides not just with, what happens on the bridges that are, legal to these boundaries, but also with congestion prices. So the governor had the event, and she spoke, and Janet spoke, and Victoria spoke, and
Dan Goldman.
Goldman spoke, and Janet Dennis from Riders Alliance, who captured the governor's attention, and she's actually really amazing speaker. Spoke, and we were invited, and, it was a full room, and it was very exciting and interesting, and, welcome today, and we were to share, that things go forward, and,
I don't know that I'm gonna.
now, the next steps are potential lawsuits. Bill Murphy and Mary Mann in New Jersey have hired Randy,
Mastro, yeah.
which is apparently is not the largest political group in New Jersey.
No.
So,
Senator Menendez is threatened, obviously
but-
Josh Gottheimer is
So,
threatened.
back up for a second, before you even talk about that. Gottheimer is part of this. It's not just,
Yeah.
Bill Murphy. The
that's why
state
he's part of the
of,
mayor.
the state of New Jersey is basically because, I, among some other people at the funeral yesterday, said, out of truth, you know how much Dick wanted to have congestion pricing, why are you going ahead with this ridiculous lawsuit? And he said, and I'll say it again, it's politics, and so there is, but the one good thing is that they now have set a time frame for the installation of the gantries, the mechanisms and everything
Yeah.
else.
Right,
And
that's part of the contract.
It's 312 days, and I really,
310.
no, well,
That's what, that's.
whatever, well.
Whatever,
Or-
it's gonna quibble over 2 days.
2 days of
There's an
unfriend,
incentive, clause in there.
yeah,
So-
but,
Transcore is the
but that
outfit.
is assuming that there is some settlement. I mean, it could go much longer than that.
But there's not a settlement yet, because there's not a lawsuit yet. So
And I don't think the lawsuit would prevent the installation of the readers.
That's, so.
Well, it depends
There's-
what the
All right,
lawsuit.
so there's not a lawsuit yet, so we're waiting for next, is the date when TRMRB will meet, the Traffic Mobility Review
Obvious.
Board. A new member has been appointed to replace Scott Rexler, a guy from, the, Labor on Long Island, who has been well received by the board, by the other members. We anticipate that'll happen within the next 2 weeks, and then we expect that there will be a handful of public meetings. They have to get up to speed on the 4,000-page document, and which includes tens of thousands of comments. The other opportunity for intervention, negative intervention is from the taxi and for hire vehicle industry.
Oh.
And that is, conversations that are being facilitated to try and, adapt and adjust, ways to prevent that. So, there's a lot of conversations, a lot of things happening.
Jano had a great quote, I thought, when he said no comment when asked about the lawsuits, but I believe somebody, I thought it was Jano, but somebody said, New Jersey doesn't ask our permission when they raise the tolls
No,
on the
that was-
Jersey Turnpike or
Yeah,
Garden State Parkway.
That was Jano.
I thought it was.
In one of his interviews.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, Lisa,
Great line.
if you saw them, but leaving the, what's the name of it, the NYU building on Tuesday, there was a demonstration by
Oh, yeah.
the taxi riders, and it got, but the thing is, they know how to do it, because it got almost as much coverage as the announcement of congestion pricing. I mean, literally, I always think as a PR person.
They're outside of, the governor's office weekly,
No, I know, but this was a big event where you had a lot of press, and they are going ahead. They're not gonna stop, they're gonna have a suit, and even though you're saying that, there's still hope that Jersey isn't going to do anything, from all of
Well,
what
I didn't say that there's, we don't know, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see based on
Not just
what the
Jersey.
TMRB recommends.
Well, that's just what,
Congressmember Malliotakis is on the same page.
If the TMRB recommends that the George Washington Bridge and Verrazano bridges have their fees that are, that the tolls are,
Oh, spit it out.
equalized or used, or, wiped out by the, or.
Credited towards the congestion fee.
Thank you, credited towards the congestion fee, that might address the issues that are being raised.
no, because as somebody said, as some of my New Jersey, people who I know have said, and Josh Gottheimer and some others have said, they don't care. If, you talk about one bridge, there are a couple of tunnels.
The tunnels are written into legislation.
I'm just telling you what
We'll
they're.
see.
Okay.
I'm
Nobody
hoping,
said
We're gonna move on,
Let's,
folks.
let's
The
just.
other thing I want to talk about is the Secretary of Affairs hearing. I'd like to thank everybody who testified, really appreciate you coming out. It was great. Jano mentioned, not by name, the fact that there were, groups, who, supported or understood the necessity of, small regular increase, so, would have been nice to acknowledge that.
Would have been nice,
But, I do definitely
considering we're in-house.
appreciate, those of you who testified and those of you who wished that they could, but, had other obligations.
Do you want to give an update on?
On staffing,
Yeah.
we have interviewed between 12 and 18 people for the Research and Communications Associate position, that was vacated by Karen, when she was promoted. And we have, we believe that we've gotten to 2 finalists who we've, asked to move on to the next step. We've asked them to submit writing samples by tomorrow afternoon.
And DNA samples by the day after.
We're not allowed to do that.
I know.
So, we will, then take this into consideration and make an offer. After that, we'll move forward with the director, hopefully we'll be, fully staffed where we need to be and able to do all the things that we want to do. Or at least by the end of the summer,
Moving along.
that we don't have to phone ourselves.
Okay, our speaker will be here shortly, but, in person, yes.
Yes, he had to stop at a government, surprise government website.
Want to do some new business while we're waiting?
Andrew,
Yes,
I do have new business.
okay.
As we are coming in next month, this is really Pride Month. Judy,
No, I just realized
Yeah.
what I have to announce.
yeah, Disability Pride Month is next month, as you know, it's 8833. Thanks to the system-wide accessibility that gave these out, these are events that are coming up, and there might be more coming up. So all I can say is stay tuned for that. I know I gave one to Cara,
Yes,
as
that's
well
what
as, I know Lisa, I know you
Yeah.
got
I
one,
want to
but
announce it.
I do have extras here if anyone's interested. Judy, this is for you, right here. But, we are getting ready to celebrate a lot of the events for 8833. As an active member, I have been trying to push, more events to go out to different parts of the borough, as well as the railroads. So I hope the railroads will do something also, because 33 years, things that we've been advocating for, yes, and Trudy, I know you, and Stuart, Bert, and everyone who's here, and the past members,
when we always advocate what we've accomplished, we need to make sure that we still continue that and show what we've been doing. So all I can say is stay tuned for more details on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have something new, which I should have announced before, but we already have our July speaker. And I got agreement from him, yes, I need confirmation in the schedule. As soon as somebody gives me the exact date.
I gave it to you
When?
2 weeks ago.
No. you
Yes,
didn't.
I did.
You were gonna check it out. Okay. Well, whatever the exact date that Andrew gave me, which maybe my brain isn't working too well, but do you wanna tell it to us again?
Yeah. Who the speaker is, you mean?
No, not the
The date.
speaker, the date.
Sure.
Date. Anyway, Mark Levine, Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine, who has also been a
July 27th, Thursday, July 27th.
but who has been a wonderful advocate, so helpful with congestion pricing, even though he's been getting a lot of, especially the people from Midtown and the cab drivers and others have been really on his back. But he has been steadfast. So he's going to speak about that and other things that are going on in Manhattan. And as Andrew and I talked about, that this should be, we've done it before. The first of the borough presidents, we should have all of the borough presidents, one at a time, talking about specific issues. So, and I told Andrew that I would get on that too, because
Yeah, I think.
unfortunately,
Mark
well,
Levine
maybe
has some
fortunately, I know all of them.
good things,
So,
in his pocket about transportation, so.
yeah, so anyway, so that is already done for the July meeting. And for those of you who don't know him, he's quite something. I think we've had borough presidents, all of the last 4 Manhattan borough presidents at one time or another. I have. I know that. We've had Ruth, and we've had Gail, and we've had Scott, and now we're going to have Mark.
Yeah.
So, and they can be very, very helpful to some of the issues and have been.
Okay.
Some of the issues we're doing.
Any other item of new business? Seeing none, does anybody have anything of old business? Stuart?
Heard anything more about the cleaning issue?
No, but Chris will be very, very happy that one of the stations listed in the next round of renovation is 7th Avenue on the B&Q. So all of the issues that you've been bringing up about that station will be addressed.
He heard you, everyone.
Platform edges, cleanliness, all of that, tile work, waterproofing. Oh, by the way, I did ask, Demetrius a question, because I've been on, and Trudy mentioned it, but others have mentioned it, we've seen the trains sped up somewhat, and they're taking curves at a fairly high rate of speed. So, what?
Not the 4. Trudy agrees from.
In other parts of the 4, right? Anyway, when you're going around a curve, there's extra pressure on the tracks, on the rails, on the beams, on everything. So I asked Demetrius if extra attention is paid to where there are curves, and he checked, and everything is checked very visibly twice a week on all parts of all lines. So that was good to hear.
Oh, I asked Chris something. I just want to bring up something else that we can do. One of the speakers at Dick's
I see you, Karen.
funeral,
You're next.
one of the speakers at Dick's funeral was Betsy Godbound. And as you know, her late husband Victor was one of the 4 people, the 4 men in the room who solved the fiscal crisis, along with Felix Rowan and Al Shanker. And so Betsy spoke, and she was very close. But that reminded me, and I spoke to her afterwards, it was thanks to Betsy that, well, we have Chris, but before that, we got a true representative of the Disability Committee, and that was Edith Prentice. And so Betsy, as she and I talked, asked about Edith. And since we have this Disability Month, I would think that maybe we can do some kind of a tribute to Edith, who did more for, which Chris is now carrying on, but for disability community, drove me a little crazy at times, but she was a wonderful, those of you who didn't know her, she was an amazing, wonderful woman.
We can certainly talk about doing something in July. I'm gonna ask you if you can turn your phone down in your office.
That's
Karen,
one of my
you're
favorites.
next.
Yeah,
Was it?
yeah.
I turned it off, I have it on.
No, I heard it.
Only emergency, okay.
And just,
Then let me turn it off.
Karen,
Karen, please
Karen,
go
we
ahead.
can't hear you,
Two
Karen.
things. So one, and I sent the email to you and Lisa about this ongoing parking issue at Laurelton.
Oh, yeah.
The group, they've been quiet for the past few Saturdays, and now they have signs, not just at the actual parking lot, but along the way telling everyone that there's this market on Saturday and no parking from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So just, I don't know why we can't move forward on that.
If you haven't heard back yet, we'll follow up.
Right. I haven't heard back from Annabelle, but I figure she's busy, so I'm hoping I'll hear from her by tomorrow. And I just was curious, I had read something recently that the MTA is going to start accepting ID New York City applications for reduced fare benefits, and I was just wondering if someone could talk more about that.
I don't know, can someone?
I think you said it all.
We want the details, so we could inform other people.
So, I mean, I think that's the detail. If we need more detail, we can get it for you, but, you know, it's a new form of ID that's accepted.
We'll get you more information
Oh, okay.
about it on the website.
Thank you.
Website as well, but yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get you more
Everybody?
detail.
A pleasure to introduce President Rich Davey, who is everywhere. I mean, he's just such a busy guy, so many things happening in the system, and almost all are good. So,
Almost.
almost all are good.
That's not bad.
Well,
I'll take,
Almost.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll take all.
almost
Rich,
as,
isn't this your first anniversary?
It was a few weeks ago, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But we didn't celebrate it, so.
Well, we didn't, you know, destroy it either, right? So we didn't crash it, so exactly.
But anyway, I think we should note that
I
you've
appreciate
lasted a whole year
I
and
have.
then some.
I have. I walked by a wall of, picture of presidents, all in the black and white. I check every morning to see if my picture, which is in color, is in black and white. Because if it's in black and white, it indicates that they found someone new. So, as of this morning, my picture was still in color.
I always check to make sure my ID works.
Exactly.
and people read the obits to make sure they're not in it.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That's right.
Oh, wow.
Thanks, yes, it's been about 14 months.
That's the famous words of Lee Hay from the Weavers, and that was his line, I really hope.
Anyway, as everybody knows, because I told you all, Rich, Lisa, myself, Demetrius, and many others were at Hoyt Schermerhorn this morning to announce increased weekend service on the GJ and M lines. That's the first of many that are coming, thanks to the state budget, thanks to Rich and Demetrius having the manpower to, person power, I thought manpower was equally,
No, it is not.
people power, there, that's better.
People
People
power.
power, to manage the additional service. So, Rich, take it away.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone, both in the room and on the phone. So yes, in fact, it is true. I've been on the job now about 14 months, and it has been, well, I'll say this personally. When you know you have the best job you'll ever have in your career, which is what I have right now, it makes coming to work and doing the hard stuff a little easier. You know, I've run a few transportation organizations, done a few other interesting things in my career. That's the spirit in which I continue to show up to work every day, out in the service, hear the good, bad, and the ugly sometimes, but it is a tremendous honor to be the president. So what are we up to? As Andrew just said, even today, we announced more service on those 3 lines weekend, starting this weekend. Again, thanks to the governor and the legislature. A couple members of the assembly were there to take credit, as they should. There are a lot of places in the United States that are cutting service because they have a fiscal cliff. They don't have the workforce, they have workforce shortage. And, you know, we do a bi-monthly call with the CEOs of the largest transit agencies in America. We initiated that last year for Boston and Atlanta and Chicago and Philly, DC, LA. You know, they're struggling. I mean, they have different struggles. You know, some COVID money is still around. DC is an absolute basket case for a bunch of reasons.
not the least of which is they've got to get it from the district, Maryland, and Virginia.
Correct. Exactly.
3 jurisdictions they got to deal with.
Exactly. And, you know, none of whom see eye to eye, right? So, so just taking a quick step back, like all the work that you all did and other advocacy groups did in the last 12 months has got us to a point where we are adding service, where we are investing in our system, where we are, you know, doing things like implementing ABLE legislation so we can ticket double parked cars and bus stops. Like, this is not happening anywhere else. And I can say that with certainty because I've been in a few other places and I talked to these leaders. And so you should all take a bow, literally or figuratively, to say you were part of what, I mean, I have 2 folders in my office. One was called Rollback and one was called Renaissance. This was literally what we were talking about when we said to Judy and others, all right, if we get more money, what's the Renaissance? Like, what are the services we can offer? And if we don't, where are we cutting? Like, where are we cutting? Thankfully, Rollback has been recycled.
Excellent.
And Renaissance is what we're executing on. So you know, cheers to you all. And, you know, we'll get into issues, no doubt, smaller, you know, other issues you have or, you know, observations, but just taking that step back, we should all take a bow. That's the context in which what's happening. You know, not to mention congestion pricing, which is obviously another huge win. Boston, I saw today, I just look at their media clips. You know, their legislature and are already, and some advocates are already saying, hey, look at what New York did. This is our time now.
LA is talking about it too.
Exactly. So we are leading.
The land of the auto.
We are, and we should, by the way. We are in New York, but we are leading the conversation.
That was one of the arguments used by our representatives in Washington, which both Richie and Dan made very clear that to get FHA to move their tushies on this was to say that this could be the example for the rest of the nation. That's good that they've already contacted you on it.
I mean, so there, you know, and we're also fortunate to have a administration in Washington, representation in Washington also believes in public transit. So, like, that's the big picture, right? So what are we doing in year 2? Which I think was your question. So, all right, you've got a year behind you. What's next? So there's a few things. One is going to be executing on this new budget, right? So that is going to be more service. As Andrew said, we're obviously implementing new service this weekend on the GJ&M, but we have plans to launch more service later this summer, in December, and again mid-next year around July, as we continue to hire up more crews, and as we continue to bring on new trains like the A train, which we announced today. The R211s have been successful. The testing is now complete, and we put our second train into service, and we'll begin to roll those into service over the coming months as they come, and we can retire those dogs. So
just out of curiosity, because I'll forget if I wait till the end. When you put the second A train in service, are you going to run one of them to Lefferts and the other one to Far Rockaway?
that'll be up to Demetrius.
Fair enough, one on each
Fair
line,
enough.
right? Fair enough.
Probably not, because I think we will, you know, we don't like to create micro fleets, we just like to run. But let's run. But clearly, the goal is to retire them all and to get with it. So, yeah, not committing to that.
They do change, sometimes they don't always go and come to the same destination. You might leave out of Far Rock, go to 2/5, and then end at Lefferts, so it could
I
possibly.
hope you don't go to 205th, because that's on the D
I mean,
line.
2/7.
Okay.
It's been 2 years, all right, give me a break. It's been 2 years, give me a break.
Accuracy is North Star, but quizzing North Star. So executing on the budget, but budget also has the MTA coming up with $400 million in recurring savings.
Yes.
And so New York City Transit is responsible for $300 of that $400 million. We are obviously the largest piece of the budget. We've been working very hard the last few months to identify savings that don't impact customer service, don't impact service generally speaking. And, you know, we started to execute on that. You'll hear more about that at the July board meeting, where I think Kathy and I, or maybe the Finance Committee, Kathy and I will be talking about our efforts to date to do that. And that's
Jake last month.
and Jake Luce. Jake, yep, good. And Jake has been really pushing that on our behalf. And we're looking at everything from predictive maintenance. You've heard me say that over and over again. Employee availability is another big one. That was a big topic of conversation. at our collective bargaining, CWU, which, I was in all of those, sessions. In May, that's where I was. And really executing to the budget that's been provided. And then, to me, it's doubling down on what we focused on in year one, which was faster, cleaner, safer, right? So, my view, and I think what our customers are telling us on a regular basis, is it's kind of the back to basics for New York City Transit. And so whether it was, COVID or the fiscal cliff from time to time, and maybe some, past political leadership that was, creating some tension between the city and state, I think we took our eye off the ball a bit on the basics. And so we are, looking at, we're managing the railroad, if you will, much more rigorously. So Demetrius and team are doing a daily, weekly, and monthly service call with the line managers, looking at, why is the A dipped this month? What's going on in the D? Why is the 2 an issue? What happened here or there? And really granularly in managing the operation. Same on the buses. You've heard us talk a little bit about, I hope, at board and committee, that the bus team is focused on the 29 underperforming routes. My view is that if you try to do everything and solve every problem here, you won't solve anything. And so getting the bus team to focus on the 29 underperforming routes is where our energy has been. And we've already seen improvements on 18 of the 29 routes. And how do we measure improvement? Customer journey time, departure and arrival at beginning and end point. And that's everything from fix that pothole, let's get transit signal prioritization here. We actually need to move the bus stop across the light. There's double parking here. We've got vendors creeping into the street in our bus lane. We need to get them off the street. Like, they are going block by block. It's like a guerrilla war in some respects. And that's how you're going to improve bus service. I mean, there are bigger things we're doing, obviously, ABLE, and those are critically important. But we've also been working with NYPD traffic, and we've been out ticketing a bunch of cars as well at some key locations on some key routes where we don't have ABLE right now. They've been very, very great. I mean, traffic police have been really helpful. And then on paratransit, it's probably the one where we hear the widest variety of, I would say, of observations, right? And hopefully you've often heard me say, particularly at the board meetings or the committee meetings, when, we hear customers who are providing, some pretty tough feedback that I do not reject, or I do believe those lived experiences. There's no doubt we're not perfect, but Chris and what his team have been doing has just demonstratively moved the dial by any measure, right? Customer satisfaction 2 years ago was around 40%. Today it's around 70%. E-Hail, we're excited about the expansion of E-Hail. I know it wasn't quite what some of our advocacy community wanted, but we're going to learn again and see how that works. We have a new software system that we're installing to improve scheduling, and we're holding our vendors accountable. So we have a lot going on the operation side, but that's how we're just very granularly observing how we're doing. Our station renovation program has been, I think, a big hit, and so using those shutdowns for other work that customers as a general matter don't see, track, power, signal, CBTC, we're using now to upgrade at least, or pay a lot closer attention to our stations. We've done, I think, 35 of those now. We'll get to 50 probably by the end of this quarter. We're opening bathrooms, another issue. I don't know, maybe I know that E is on here. My nickname whenever I leave might be Bathroom Daddy at some point. About that internally, but
I like Potty Daddy.
Potty Daddy something, right? Potty Daddy something, I don't know. There's lots of jokes to be had there. But again, it just goes to the point of, it's just another concern that some of our customers have had. And so by the end of Labor Day, we will have opened just about the vast majority. There's a handful of stations where the bathrooms are just in deplorable condition, requiring a lot of capital investment. But the vast majority of those stations will be opened by Labor Day. The vast majority of bathrooms at those stations will be opened by Labor Day. So, we're trying to continue to listen. We're trying to continue to be responsive. Even with the additional revenue, which is incredibly helpful. It's not as if we have unlimited resources, of course, but trying to target those resources to areas where we believe our customers are saying they will they will come. And that's about cleanliness, it's about more frequent service, which we're delivering, and then it's the safety question, right? And the safety question is probably the most vexing for us, I would say. Obviously, we've worked great with NYPD. Chief Kemper, I really like him. He is a strong leader. We have a great relationship. He has a strong relationship with Jano, Pat Warren, and others. He's incredibly responsive. That's been terrific. But as you know, if you look at our monthly surveys, our customers and subways in particular say, their two biggest issues are interacting with emotionally disturbed individuals and homelessness. And, the emotionally disturbed individual point, I think, is pretty clear. I mean, I've seen, folks, I don't know, the last 25 years in this subway system in Boston and others where you confront that. But I think today, what people are concerned about is, is that one person who might be violent, right? And those interactions might rarely happen vis-a-vis some of the other folks you see, but you just never know. And so continue to work with the city and the state on how do we get our arms around this question. And it's not just a New York City question, right? It's a question for a lot of urban centers grappling with these issues. So I think that's the most vexing, and I think, one, I'd like to focus a little more on the city in year 2 as well. Obviously, on the capital side, I am a difficult client, to say the least, with Jamie, but his team, C&D, has been doing great work, investing, as you know, historic numbers in CBTC, and, obviously ADA. We haven't painted a lot of the elevator in a long time, and it's not about paint, that's actually steel preservation. So we have a huge program in this capital plan and likely the next capital plan. I've also been talking a lot about facilities, so you may see in the next capital plan, 20 needs plan, facilities, the back of house stuff that folks don't see as being critical. So 2nd Avenue subway, phase 2 is great. IBX, fantastic. But if you spent time at Livonia lately, you'd be shocked that we actually repair anything there. And so, you've been to some of our bus garages. I mean, these are, it's facilities that were built in the 40s or 50s. By the way, not with women in mind to be in the workforce, right? And so, we have a lot of work to do on facilities. So facilities generally don't have a natural constituency to fight for. So there's one thing that I'd ask you to do is to, keep an eye on that and fight as hard for that kind of back-of-house stuff that's required to put out our service that's critically important. And then, I'm excited about, again, that customer-facing stuff, right? Omni, we're testing Omni machines right now. Obviously, Andrew, at least you saw, Tara, you saw the machine in our boardroom a couple months ago. So we have 7 or 8 of those, some in this building and some over at our revenue facility. We're testing those right now with the goal of trying to roll out some as pilots later this year. So that's why bringing station agents out of the booth is so important. They are really the face and the gateway of helping our customers, maybe longtime New Yorkers who find Omni vexing to, my favorite is, the new customer, the new person in New York, the tourist who's looking up with their mouth wide open. They're lost. And, our system can be daunting, and so helping them. We opened today, make a little news, it's out there, is our customer service center at Times Square. So that is up and running now. This was a big push. It's on 42nd and...
Between Broadway and 7th Avenue.
Yeah, between 7th Avenue, exactly. That's right, Christy.
It's on the right side if you're going towards south.
Yeah.
Broadway is going on
At
one
the
way.
crossroads, it's called the Crossroads of the World.
Crossroads of the world.
Oh, by the law.
That's what
That's
Times
what
Square
it's
is known
called.
as.
That's
She's right.
those of us who are native New Yorkers from a long
It's
time,
called
that's
home.
what it's been known as. So we are
Crossroads of the
at
world. So
crossroads.
How
now
many
it's the
does that make
crossroads of
now?
customer service.
How many customer service centers does that make now?
12 or 13?
Oh, that many, okay.
Do they have fair fares information there?
They do. We can't sign people up, but they do have information. But what the city has been doing, which has been great, is they've come, I think actually out to Coney Island. Jason, you may have seen him actually. But they've come out to Coney Island from time to time to set up a table or booth in the area to get folks to sign up.
They could use more downstairs,
More,
fair fares information.
downstairs here, or you mean two?
since you spoke about safety as being vexing, and of course it is, and,
Well, the mental health crisis, I think, being vexing.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
While the R211s come camera equipped, what's the timetable for installation of cameras in the rest of the fleet?
Yeah, so we're still on target to have it installed by the end of next year. We actually got a delivery of cameras 2 days ago, I think. Kitted cameras, I think 800. So we are expecting over the next, I think, 6 weeks, every other week, approximately 600 kits, which will get us, I think, approximately 2,000 cars. So we have started installation on that, but the goal still, as the governor announced, by the end of 2024, the entire fleet will be retrofitted. We're not going to do obviously the cars we're retiring.
Right.
In
Right.
the 211s, but
Is the,
well on our way.
is the quality as good as the ones in the stations?
Better. So one of the things that we were really working on with our IT department, our security department, and then Department of Subways is what's the product as we retrofit? What can be easily downloaded, that's compliant with cybersecurity, that's cost effective, and that, frankly, if we have to retrieve video, don't want to have to take the car out of service, or the train out of service, right? And I think you all know that. While we pull video certainly for issues that happen in the subway system, we actually pull a lot of video for NYPD for issues that are happening on the street.
Mhm.
And so, that
Into the system.
that escape into the system,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Rich, I don't want to interrupt, but
Yeah.
you just said something about the IRT, for those of us old timers.
I did not say the
No, he didn't say that.
No, no.
The IRT department?
IT department.
Oh,
IT department, sorry.
I
Yes.
hear,
The information
That's a
technology.
function of old age.
We have a
Okay.
question
No
of whether
problem,
the
no problem.
cameras in the train also capture audio.
They do not. So we do not capture
Or
audio.
be a cacophony of confusion.
Yeah, no, we do not capture,
So
audio.
you don't capture all those entertainers, huh?
We do not capture the
I'm-
entertainers, although I understand we were watching, more acts yesterday, so we might have some more entertainment, more diverse entertainment systems.
Well, that's the program, music under the,
Meanwhile, people are returning, you can see it in the crowd levels. I mean, I've seen it pre-pandemic crowds, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that helps the safety situation too, no doubt about it.
Our I mentioned this at the press conference earlier today, but last weekend, so weekend of Pride, of course, too, was our highest weekend ridership on the subways since the pandemic. So we carried about 4.5 million people. Weekend ridership is clearly coming back at a more quick clip, if you will, than weekday ridership, although weekday ridership is strong. If you look at paid and unpaid, right, at bus, we're over 80% of pre-pandemic, well in the 80s. And if you look at subways, we're in the mid to high 70s for ridership. So obviously, we have a lot of work to do on fare evasion, but to give you a sense of folks riding, that's where.
I'm gonna ask one more question, and then I'm gonna open it up
Sure.
to everybody. So everybody knows that part of the state budget was to allow for one free bus in each borough,
Yes.
which will be determined shortly because there were so many days that had to be put into effect. Some of us at the board meeting were concerned and asked questions regarding, will this speed up fare evasion? Will people think that all buses are free? Will they think that if they transfer to a subway, it's free? So we were concerned that there might be some signage that says, this is a test, this is an experiment, words to that effect in the vehicles. And you are working on getting some signage, correct?
We are, and so we've been working on signage that is easily seen by our customers, easily deployed by our employees, because what we're trying to do is not create a micro fleet, a segregated fleet that would only be for the free buses. It just makes the deployment of our bus service a lot harder. And so in-house, we've come up with some good signage, things to put over the Omni screen, for example, a couple of new LEDs, and then to your point, Andrew, identify this as a free fare bus, but put the time frame, right? So it's minimum 6 months, up to a year. We'll probably say it's 6 months, and if we want to extend it, we will. And then, yeah, we are in the process using the criteria the legislature gave us to determine which 5 routes they are, but they will be across, there'll be one route in each of the parts.
And the obvious next question is, if ridership skyrockets on these particular routes, does that mean you have to put in more service on that route?
So, I mean, it will be hard, right? Because we are already not quite running at max, but in terms of both vehicles and employees, if we were to have to add significant additional service, that would be a challenge. You know, we're still providing, for example, shuttle service for migrants. I mean, that's been widely covered, and we're trying to support, that effort with the city as an example. So we're going to watch it.
You're not reimbursed by the city for that?
I think we will be, but that's less of a reimbursement question, more of the people power question, right? Like, we're using, obviously, drivers and vehicles of which we don't have unlimited amounts of. Not that it's impacting service now, but if we continue to grow service, it certainly potentially could. And then lastly, on the bus, and I have to take questions, is, yeah, we're also looking at, to your point, things like ridership. So are there bus routes that have availability, where we're underperforming right now for ridership. So that's, consideration. Looking at EJ communities and equity. We're looking at trying to find routes that don't follow other routes, so it's not confusing about what's free or not. And so, and then, trying to make sure that the fleet has automated passenger counters so we can actually see how ridership is potentially driven up. We assume it will be. So we have a lot to consider in this, both pilot and study. And like everything, we're a bit of a laboratory of social experimenting here in New York City Transit, and so this will be another one to see how we turn.
Yes, Burge, and then Trudy.
Question, safety. That seems to me to be the major problem I encounter and hear about. What are we going to tell people has happened, which I think is good, and how are we going to reinforce that so they believe us?
Yeah, well, crime is down in the system year over year. And if you look at, from the era of CompStat, so since 1994, if you take, and the chief said this last week, or earlier this week, if you take out 2020 and 2021, the anomalies when nobody was riding the system, including criminals, this is like the third lowest per crime, capital crime, since 1994. Now, that doesn't mean crime isn't happening, we shouldn't be doing anything, but just sort of taking a step back, I think last year, the chief of the department, who since retired, said he did an analysis, and I might misquote it, but the coverage, the media coverage around crime is like 4 times higher.
Oh, absolutely.
than and so the impression, right? Is there. So I think continuing to see the police at the fair race or in stations, our announcements that we make. So if you're on the subway and the police are on the platform, our conductors are supposed to make an announcement. Conductor needs to be, the cops need to be at the conductor position though, because they might not see them. And then we have the automated announcements reminding customers of where the police, where the transit districts are located. So, 14th Union Square, I go through there every day, and I hear that announcement. It's automated, right?
Anybody running out to go see the police?
Once, actually.
What?
Once. Yeah.
Once?
Yeah, once. Yeah. When the train was stopped and there was, a malicious individual who was escorted off the train. So, but it goes to your perception question, right? It's like, so, folks feel that there are resources out there to help them. That's one. The end of the line work we're continuing to do, so at night, overnight in particular, for folks who are seeking shelter in our system, we have homeless services, we have our cleaners, obviously, we have management, we have police to offer services to those who seem to be homeless or may have issues. I think that's been successful. A lot of folks have accepted services, some have not. And so continuing to be on top of that situation is critically important. As I said before, I think the most vexing challenge for us as a city is the mental health question. On average, now I haven't looked at the data, but I get texts every time, there's an issue in the system. But on average, we have about one suicide or attempted suicide a day in the system. So if that's not a indication of the mental health crisis that's occurring in our city, I don't know what is, right? So we have a lot of work to do. Cameras, obviously, we have 10,000, or I think 12,000 cameras in our stations. I would say this: crime is committed, you are more often than not caught pretty quickly.
As far as you can see,
The slasher, that guy was caught within 24 hours.
because of the cameras.
Mhm.
I just think this is something that has to be publicized even more.
I've never been in an organization, a government organization, where people were accused of over-communicating, so I don't disagree.
Okay, Trudy is next, and then Stuart.
Two questions. First of all, well, I'll ask the second one first. Where you brought up about the one free bus, if you can clarify, because it's my understanding that it's in the legislation, but it's not, it's an experimental or to see how it goes, or are you treating it as something that's going to be permanent in one in each borough?
We're treating it as an experiment. So the legislation required the pilot to
That's the word.
the pilot for between 6 months and a year.
Yeah.
And one of the qualifications or requirements is that throughout the pilot, we could not lose, I think, more than $15 million in net revenue.
It says that?
Yes. And
Yeah,
so
that's what
we've
I-
crafted, we've tried to look at what the net costs of our services are. But again, net of what they're making today. So we're treating it as a pilot to see what we learn. But, free buses, if we were to roll that out across the system, that would be an incredibly expensive proposition, no doubt.
But what's going to be the determination after the 6 months or a year?
We'll publish our findings. Did ridership go up? Did ridership go down? Will customer satisfaction, did that improve? Bus speeds, did those go up? What was the passenger count like? Did we have issues on other routes, as Andrew said, were people claiming that they were entitled to free fares on routes that weren't free? We'll do all of that, report out to the board what we find, and then, presumably the legislature. I don't know if actually we're required to report to the legislature. I assume we are, but maybe they didn't ask for one.
No, the board is required, or JANO is.
Yeah, the board, but I'm wondering if there's going to be a formal, actually, report to the legislature.
Well, the legislature is going to have to pass new legislation after this pilot period.
If they want more.
If they wanted to go. I think this was, from my understanding, that it was done sort of to placate a lot of people, to get them,
Well, that I
try
can't
a pilot.
I am politically agnostic.
Yeah.
You probably all know better than I. But we will definitely report out to the board how the pilot, or studies, we've been
I'm
calling
going
it.
to find it in there.
I have the legislation in my inbox, Trudy.
I'm not talking about the legislation.
All right, Trudy, if you have
Okay,
another question.
Yes, my other question is about ABLE, which I think is great. And as you probably know, getting to legislation again, Lincoln Restler, the councilman from Brooklyn, has put in legislation, it looks like it's going to pass, about people who don't pay tickets for various things. And for double parking, for whatever. And in the legislation is also about, and I think it's the first time, about what Andrew was asking before about the cameras, and cars that drive, trucks, vehicles that drive in the bus lane. Two parts of it. Have you been in conversation with Lincoln Restler or anybody in the city council as far as this because it hasn't passed, it's just been
I
proposed.
personally have not, although I did see Lincoln Restler today.
Well, if I would be interested in knowing, I think we would, if we're involved in all of that, since the ABLE legislation was our baby.
Yep.
And that's number one. And number two, and I guess the other question to be asked is that will we share in any of this, the money that's going to come in from
Sure.
this?
So on the second question, yes, the revenue does come to New York City Transit. I've.
In what way? I mean, is there a,
They bring a bag of cash to us, no, I'm kidding.
You do small bills.
We make them, we do the back end through Department of Finance. They are made whole for their labor costs and their administrative costs. You know, we receive the additional revenue captured by our bus-mounted cameras, and the city keeps the revenue captured by their stationary cameras.
so it's good that if we get more for this
Yes,
legislation.
I mean, I have been on the record saying I wish I collected no money whatsoever because our buses would be speeding around the 5 boroughs. But the reality is that's not true. I mean, the one thing, Trudy, I would say that on the collection versus not, or, you know, what we have seen when we've rolled out ABLE is that behavior does change, right? Now, put aside commercial vehicles for a moment. That's a different story. But for personal vehicles, the average New Yorker, if he or she gets a ticket for violating a bus lane or bus stop, bus lane, as we've done it so far, 80% of the time, they only get one ticket, and they don't, doesn't recur. And about another 10%, do it twice, don't repeat. So the recidivism rate is pretty low.
Really?
People's behavior does change.
Well, those people.
Of course, on the commercial vehicles, the fine is just the cost of doing business.
Oh, commercial vehicles, they write that into their budget,
Yep.
you know, how many they're gonna have to pay.
And that's a challenge.
Those are your two questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, Stuart was next.
Thank you, Annette.
Then Chris.
Thank you.
And we have a question from there, so.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for all the many updates.
Of course.
Wanted to see if you could share with the council and the guests an update on how Omni and the rollout is doing.
Yeah.
Are they getting back on track? You know, the timetable has changed.
Yeah, sure. So, Omni, so maybe just sort of where we are, right? So Omni, as you know, has been rolled out, for validators all over bus subway. Right now, we are averaging, and we've seen, since I've joined, has nothing to do with me joining, but this is the data that I know the last 14 months, continues, the share of the Omni market share continues to climb on subways in particular. I think yesterday we were at 45% of our subway customers used Omni. And so we
Paying subway customers.
yeah. So we are, that's grown, right? And so, which is great. With, I would argue, probably not a lot of marketing, but our station agents, we're asking them to now push on. So bus is much lower, 20%, 25%, I think. So we have a lot of work to do on bus. Machines, as I mentioned, we are testing those now with the hope that we'll start rolling out some of those later this year for pilot in the field. I've insisted with the Omni team, we need to have these machines out in below ground stations, above ground stations, cold stations, wet stations, hot stations, stations where people are going to kick it and really fight it. And know exactly, I want to test it, under as many conditions as possible. Having purchased and used the Cubic software and hardware in Boston, or actually Scheit Bachman, 15 years ago. We had some modifications and redesigns when I was general manager there because they clearly not, in my opinion, done enough field testing, robust testing. So we want Cubic to do that.
How long do you envision that testing?
It's probably months if it goes well, right? I'm probably a little less concerned about the hardware as opposed to the software. And then, Jano has sort of reconfigured Omni, and it was sort of a headquarters chief operating officer role. He's now put it under construction development and has two new, sort of project managers, project leads, if you will, or a couple project leads who are delivering it as a mega project, but also one where we are really analyzing, how our customers interact with it and what kind of fare products we could offer, right? So the 7-day, tap 12 times, the rest are unlimited on Mondays has been pretty popular, but it starts on Monday, writing the software to say it's any 7 days, right? Are there other products we could offer? Monthly, for example, other products we could offer. So, I think there's, so those are the kinds of things we're looking at, is not only rolling up the hardware, but also what kind of software modifications do we need to, but I'd say, if your ultimate question is when is MetroCard being retired, we're probably 18 months away from that, be my guess, at the earliest.
Thank Thank you very much.
You know, once told me when I came here that the thing New Yorkers hate more than change is the status quo is change. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it's a big change management for our customers, right? So we have a lot of work to do to,
Who tells you that?
every New Yorker I've met.
Can I ask you a quick question? I just want to know, are you looking at doing like Omni machines in places like the library?
No. So the reason is because, so two things. One is, you know, the retail network we have, you should be able to certainly buy an Omni card or potentially add some value in some of these locations in the future. But I think we're trying to get out of the retail network business. So and I'm not sure we're entirely going to trade one-for-one machine either. Because remember, 44% of our customers right now are using Omni without an Omni card. They're tapping with their phone, they're tapping with their, so there'll be a segment of customers who use Omni cards, no doubt, but we think it'll be, let's put it this way, like, MetroCard was the only thing you could use once we get over to tokens. It's gonna be a different sort of, I think, retail network and how we think about it.
Something that's unbanked and fair and things like that.
Yep. And so that's why we've opened the customer service centers. Obviously, still have Stone Street. We'll have the retail network, which we'll continue to push as well.
Andrew, I have Chris's permission to just do a follow-up quickly before his question on the Omni card.
Yeah, but you don't have my permission.
Marisol has a question as well.
Very, very, very quickly.
Very
Because
quickly.
I brought this up every time we talk about Omni cards, because of my local CVS person
Ask
who
it.
asks me all the time. And it's still not clear that buying the Omni card, it's not like a Metro card, that you don't have money on it, that whatever you pay, you're just paying for the card. And I was wondering if anything has been done about that, either by signage or by getting that information out or whatever. Because the cashiers are very frustrated because the customers take it out on them.
Yeah. I mean, I would be shocked because I don't think there are very many Omni cards purchased at the retail network. I'm not sure customers even know about it. So I think the Omni team is looking at rethinking about that. I mean, the other fundamental question on the table we need to consider at MTA is a Metro card costs $1, an Omni card costs $5. So, I think New Yorkers are also rational, and a rational individual is not going to go purchase a card for $5 when they can purchase a card for $1.
We're rational.
However, Rich, isn't it true that a Metro card has a fixed life because of the magnetic stripe, but the tap card is like indefinite?
That I don't know if, on the Omni card, I don't know if we have created.
Nothing is indefinite. You
Yeah.
put it next to a magnet. it's
They didn't say
definitely-
indefinite, but they said it definitely has longer
Much
life
longer lifespan.
than
But
the
they're paying $5 for a card, not for
One time.
transportation or anything.
Correct.
A one-time charge. So,
$5 activation.
whatever, so if
So
you.
that's another question we have to
You
think
could
about.
follow up with that would be great.
Okay, Chris, your turn.
First, Rich, I know I said this earlier also, because this is a two-part question. One question, as you know, we're getting ready to do the Disability Pride Month as well, and I do want to.
I'm going to be videotaping a message for that at 4:30.
Yeah, that, actually, Hugh told me that. Unfortunately, he's away, but he did tell me you were doing it, and I want to thank you
Of
for that.
course, absolutely.
The
I'm marching the Pride Parade on Sunday, by the way, too, which is cool.
The only thing I do want to thank you, one thing, because, I did, for the last month, and I do put it in the complaint, and I'm glad we're seeing things are being fixed on buses, subways, and I'll say, there are some areas in bus lines, you can't blame the drivers, but we've got to blame cars that are blocking in Brooklyn and other boroughs as well. It's just that's going to be a big challenge still, but if we can get DOT with admin accessibility combined with Q, which you both are doing, and we may could do a campaign in the future to tell them these people, do not block the bus stops or you will get fined.
Yep.
Because it's really, really getting disturbing. And we also now, forget about cars we have to watch motorcycles now.
Sure.
Going through red lights and praying they don't hit the bus.
Well, all of us have to.
And
Yeah,
I agree, but you're right, and that's one concern, so that's another thing to worry about. But there is one worry, and Caitlin, this is also linked to you as well, we need to watch, because I did put this in as alert. I know they have to do street construction, but they never put it on the app as well, or the MTA alert saying the bus is being
detour. Like last night, the B4, B36, and B1 had to be detoured because of street pavement on Ocean Parkway. Buses were going in different detours, were not following instructions, or the bus is going on another route, but there was no email, no alert.
But if you go on bus time, you'll see that.
It wasn't there.
Sometimes it doesn't, because I also went through
Thank you.
something similar, the BM1. We
Yeah.
were repaving a section of Avenue U where the bus comes around. And the buses were going down a different route, and they weren't even told. Construction workers were telling them, turn off. You have people waiting at those stops, and now they're not getting picked up, so.
Yeah, so,
Tightening the coordination between DOT.
DOT and,
yeah,
That'd be good.
and just to let you know, they did on the B1 and Avenue X, but again, when they're doing Ocean Parkway, because I know they were doing street pavement, but they only did it one time, but they didn't do it this one from Neptune Avenue, Ocean Parkway to D, and that's where the hospital is.
Yep.
Thank God, people saw the 36 and the 4, but if they want the 1, it was an issue, because nobody know where the 1 went.
Yep.
So, we need to remind the people who does the alerts
Sure.
and bus time, Andrew,
Yep.
they have not, it was not on there. I was at Neptune and, not Ocean Park, but further down, and I did see a bus going, I was like, where are you all going?
They can only do what DOT tells them is happening, obviously, so there has to be better communication.
A few
Agreed.
questions from our member, online, asked a follow-up to Yamini.
Sure.
Have you considered marketing on the ferry service from Bronx and Brooklyn, as either marketing on board or having it available, there?
I don't know, but we can check with our marketing department, not a bad
Okay.
idea, for sure.
Great.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other question is, will there be an expansion of the Eagle team, which was certainly...
There will be,
Yeah.
there will be. And, I know we have some media on the phone, so I'm not
No,
prepared to.
we don't actually.
Well, I'm still not prepared to make,
But they might review.
any announcements. But let's just say,
Jason Anthony is in
Jason Anthony, that's right, Jason Anthony, I think he is in the media. He writes for the New York Times now, don't you? No, I'm kidding. But, the answer is yes, and, we're not quite ready to talk about how and why, but I would just say this, that,
The why is obvious.
well, yeah, but on local bus in particular is a place where we have not really focused on,
That's true.
fare evasion, and that's a place where we hope to make some headway soon.
That's great.
So this is Marisol. I just wanted to say that it would also serve as a safety mechanism on the buses. When you see the visibility will actually help address some of the issues that you've already raised as far as mental health and other safety concerns. That's why I asked the question as well. So I appreciate that.
Totally agree with that.
Great.
I think Jason had his hand up first.
Jason, and then you, Eric. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, everyone from the 7 train here in Queens. Rich, good job doing your work. I totally
Thank you.
support you. A couple of concerns that I want to raise to you directly. St. John Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center. Officers from Transit District 32, they don't stand in the conductor's position, and I don't even see them on the 4th Avenue line in either direction.
We can
And
give that, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I'm seeing this pattern, Rich, for quite some time now. And the other thing is the S40 and S90 that I take going to work. You know that that bus gets overcrowded, especially in the early morning and the afternoon. What is your department and Frank's department are going to do to increase capacity in both routes in the 40 and the 90 to avoid overcrowding?
So on the first point, we can bring that to the transit police and see if they can step up their presence. I also know too that Chief Kemper has also instructed his officers to spend some time in the fair array as well. So they could be in the station, they may not be at the platform. But I know that he's, with our support, by the way.
Rich, you see them?
Yep.
Rich, I see them near the turnstiles and the
Yep.
mezzanine
Yep.
at the Pacific Street entrance, but not on the 4th Avenue line platform.
Okay.
And on the 2, 3, 4, and 5, they could be on the platform, but not in the conductor's position.
Right.
That the conductors are aware if there's police presence at the platform or not.
Right. No, you're right about that. The goal is to have the police stand in the conductor position so the conductor can see them to make the announcement. We can reinforce that with the chief and his team. There's some slippage from time to time, and there's some slippage by our conductors, by the way, from time to time, where they forget to make the announcement. So it's just a constant reinforcement. I'll talk to Frank about S40 in the 90, you said, right? I know
Yes.
that, Staten Island, I mentioned it before, like we continue to focus on employee availability, right? And so Staten Island of the 5 boroughs tends to be the laggard on bus operator availability there. And so, we are, working with the ATU, the union that represents, basically all the folks on Staten Island as opposed to CWU, to improve that. But we'll also look to see, Jason, even if we had a full complement of buses and people, would we still need to add some service there? We'll have Judy and team take a look at it, okay?
All right, and my last point, Rich, I take the N and R trains during the early morning hours. And
Yeah.
when I take the R train to Whitehall, I see homeless people in the train, I'll say 99% of the time.
Yeah.
But I'll say over a year ago, I don't see nobody from the homeless outreach at Whitehall Street that that this station is a late night terminal for the R train. What your team is going to do to have homeless outreach presence at that station? That's also the southern terminal for the 1 train.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I'll find out. I mean, I have personally seen, although it's during the day, not early in the morning as you have, homeless outreach at Whitehall. But I'll find out and see, is that a normally scheduled station for the overnight, or do we need to maybe step up some presence there? I know we also have seen some of the homeless folks know that there is end-of-line services, and so they get off at the second to last stop and get back on. So, there is, I would say rational behavior as well, right? So it's an issue that we need to stay on top of.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Thank you, Rich.
But quick question, is there any hope in this lifetime that we will see,
There's always hope.
Eric, yeah.
well, that we will no longer see double parked trucks on both sides of Madison Avenue so that there's 1 lane of traffic that's able to move?
No.
I have no idea.
I just thought you were pulling-
If I were the commissioner of DOT, I could speak to that, but
There is no hope.
Eric.
There's no
Right,
hope.
when the MTA was located on Madison Avenue, just so you know, when the MTA was located on Madison Avenue, that question kept on coming up. Even double parked right in front of the MTA,
Headquarters.
370 Madison Avenue.
Yeah.
What's the address, 370?
347.
347, I got 2 of the numbers right. Anyway, and it was never resolved even for right in front of us, so.
I believe it.
Okay, Eric.
I'm glad, welcome, I'm glad you mentioned bathrooms. I've been waging this war since I first brought it up to Andy Byford.
Who?
When he,
I'm teasing.
he came up here, and then the pandemic hit, and everything was shut down. I'm trying to get Sheepshead Bay Road bathrooms reopened, and there've been crews there banging and knocking and putting up dividers, but the locks stay on after I make my
Well, that's a good sign if we're actually doing work. I don't have the list memorized yet. We can find,
That was a fictional station. The station is Sheepshead Bay.
Oh, I'm sorry, she said, right, yeah, no.
It's on
That's what I
Sheepshead Bay Road. but
It is.
Sheepshead Bay.
No, my brain interpreted that, is that regard. I'll find out,
Well, I'm glad it's on your mind.
Oh, sure.
Moving along.
Yeah.
The other thing is bee service. If you ride the queue on the weekends, those trains are packed. And on the holiday season between Thanksgiving and Christmas, they're unbearable because people go into the city to shop and they don't want to drive. Any hope in getting some sort of bee train service, at least on Saturdays, preferably 7 days a week? Right now, it's 5 days a week and it shuts off at 10 at night, whatever. But all these great expansions of service make me hunger for express service, the Sixth Avenue line on the B. So something else to think about.
I will think about it. I was just gonna look to see, what our other, but yeah, we'll look at it for sure. We'll look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's all of our questions.
All right.
Rich, thank you.
Just the ones that we've asked.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask one from Mr. X in his absence.
Mr. X?
He's not here.
I was
But
gonna
he
ask
always
him.
asks about the Jamaica.
I haven't got a nickname from him yet.
Okay.
And I've been here
he will.
years, so it's very disappointing.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, I'm the individual woman.
I've had,
But he always asks about the Jamaica Archer bathroom, or is it, which one is Jamaica?
I think we've opened that.
Parsons Archer.
Yeah, but Archer.
Yeah.
Both Sheepshead and Jamaica were in the press release we issued 3 days ago.
Okay.
that's right.
Oh, great.
All right, so maybe that's why he's not here today.
Those will be open
Got
by,
He said he was.
that's why he's not here.
No, he actually emailed this morning and said he actually was not able to make it, but he was supposed to be here.
Good, so we'll let
Thank
him
you
know.
so much
Thank
for
you.
all you're doing,
Of
Rich.
course, thank you, appreciate, the time,
Thank
and
you
thanks
so
for
much.
your
Really
continued advocacy and push, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're almost out of time. Does anyone have an issue they would like? Stuart?
Not an issue, but just a comment on two of these questions. Something we can suggest to the president here, and people think it's a common sense idea. So if it's still unclear to the public whether the card that they're buying contains fare enough, down the road, when they reprint more wrappers, they can add a phrase that says no fare on card. Or maybe print some stickers and answer, give it to merchants to put on the card.
Fare must be added, words to that effect.
Must add fare or
Must
no
add
fare
fare.
on card. Just a very low-tech solution.
Can I ask a question in there?
Sure.
Because I think it
Yeah,
is
sure.
an important question, so,
Yeah.
and I'm not a part of the team at all. So we're selling them as gift cards.
You
in
mean
the
your
gift
team
card
list?
rack. No, I'm not on the Omni team. So we're
Okay.
selling them as gift cards, they're on the gift card rack. Every gift card you've ever bought has a $4.95 activation date. So why do people think about Omni differently?
It's only true.
Because they would, no, it's not my friend. I can tell you very simply, because those are sold as, because Omni has gotten so much publicity and the new way it's paying, and, and it's gonna take the place of the Metro card and everything else, that.
Let me ask a question.
Wait, can I just finish?
I understand your position.
People, it's not my position, I'm just carrying this on. I have a card, I get on, I don't have to worry about that. All I'm saying is because it is sold in a place and people hear about it and everybody is told about Omni and the advertising and everything else, that people just have the assumption, this I'm getting from the people, the cashiers, and in more than, I mentioned my local CVS, in a lot of places, that where it is sold, that they think it's just like when a Metro, shut up. I'm sorry, this damn thing, I have it on side.
It's a great question to ask. And I think it's.
Wait a minute, can I
It's
just?
the newness,
Mhm.
and I don't think they're familiar with.
No, but they
What's coming with it.
are assuming that it's going to take the place of the Metro card. And when they go into a candy store or a CVS or any place else, they place that a Metro card, and they get a Metro card, they put the money on it, and then, or whatever they pay, whatever they do, and they assume, they know that that pays for something, whether they put $5 on or $2.
All right, Kate, go,
Okay.
say what you were gonna say.
So in terms of marketing and messaging, you are picking that card up off of a rack, where every other card on that rack is
No, but there are no other cards.
Would you please let her finish?
But I'm trying to tell you
Please, she knows
something.
I
that.
know what you are telling me, Trudy. I am asking about the experience of other people. I have walked into a
It's
Dwayne
not
Reed.
my experience.
Trudy, I'll ask later, Andrew.
No,
That's fine.
no, ask, why don't you
Would you,
ask now?
will you
But-
please let her answer the question?
But answer the
Please let
question
her.
that I
She's
am
not letting
bringing
her
up.
answer the
I
question,
don't work on the
Judy.
team, Trudy. I don't have an answer. I'm asking this smart group of people to think about one of the challenges in marketing this, and that when you walk into any Dwayne Reed, the Omni cards are supposed to be on the gift card rack,
But they're not.
but a lot of times they are. In
Yeah.
my Dwayne Reed, they are.
They are in mine too,
In my Dwayne Reed, they are.
and
And
CVS
every
too.
other card that you pull off of that rack, including phone minutes, gift cards, Visa cards,
American Express cards.
every single one of those,
Yeah.
the
$5.
customer understands that there is an ingrained charge to activate. And so there is a disconnect in the thinking about why, right? So if there are any ideas about how to bridge that gap.
Very simple, 3 words, no fare included.
And Andrew, let me just say it to you,
There is,
in a rational, quick answer. I think people, and I'm not a marketing expert at all, but I think people are used to products that they've been purchasing now. And Trudy, I think, said this, but in a different way. Right now, you can go in and buy from merchants prepackaged Metro cards that contain fare, and it says on the envelope what the fare is. So where the card is actually placed on that rack, I know that if I'm buying a gift card, I have to put money on it. If I'm giving a gift of $100 and activate it or whatever that is. But I think people aren't as sophisticated as we think they are, and they may confuse the card product of a wrapped Metro card that you're buying with fare for convenience at a merchant. That's all I'm saying.
That's a good point.
That's all I'm saying. And I said it's something that maybe we need to think about and then forward it to the president
Exactly.
with an idea.
If we have any contact with Omni Management, we should make this suggestion.
if you can bring
Market
this
it
up.
in a different way.
Trudy, this will be better for Andrew to raise back to the Omni team. He has
I'm
more
gonna do
say
that.
with us.
I know that.
I'm gonna do that, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else before we adjourn? Then thank you all. We'll see you next month.
So, Cheapside Bay and Jamaica Park and Archer were just announced recently. I actually want to, I'm not, the monitor for government community relations.